I want to talk about a little bit of bullshit. Just real quick here. Alright, so I know a lot of people don't like when, like, Twitter drama and discourse leaks onto, like, other platforms. I know I receive that criticism. A lot of people don't know the context of what I'm going to be talking about. But if you're on twitter.com in any capacity over the last couple of days, you might have seen that there's this new discourse that I'm going to comment on it on my show. There's a new discourse that's going around on left-wing Twitter spaces. And this discourse is whether or not people should be allowed to do drugs while they are organizing or at a protest. Now, I want to comment on this because I love doing drugs while organizing, and I love doing drugs at a protest, multiple protests. I love drugs, I love protests, and I love organizing, and I like mixing all three of those things, or two of those things in various fashions. But also, I really want to just, like, talk about this impulse that a lot of so-called left-wing people have, right? That's just, like, it's no different than, like, Ronald Reagan. Like, this is, like, Richard Nixon politics that these, like 16-year-old, like, Marxists are having on Twitter. At least I hope they're 16, because anyone older than 16 years old, if they're crying about people using drugs, I mean, Jesus Christ, right? But, like, there's this, like Vaush was commenting on this. Like, Vaush is like, you shouldn't be allowed to do drugs at a protest. This shouldn't be controversial. It's like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Like, has Vaush ever protested in his life? Probably not. I would love to see evidence of the contrary. But, like, okay, so, first of all, I want to comment on this in multiple ways. So, organizing is such a vague term, right? Like, if you are trying to, like, organize a union, and you ask, like, your coworkers, hey, you want to grab a drink after our shift? That, like, that should be banned. Like, a 17-year-old on twitter.com who identifies as a communist tanky, right, is going to tell you, oh, no drugs while organizing. You have to be stone cold sober. Like, bro, like, what? Like, I don't know about you. I don't know about you. You, the person watching this. But, okay, the idea that, like, drugs are impossible to mix with organizing, or that organizing must be some super sacrosanct, serious thing that, like, people treat like it's, like, that job that they hate or whatever. Like, you need to start, you need to monitor yourself, like, you're piss testing for a fucking, like, stupid-ass corporate job or whatever. Like, that shit is fucking insane. And then also, I just want to say, like, Vaush and all these, I'm just naming Vaush because I know people don't like him and people have their opinions on him and he's wrong on this. But there's a lot of people I respect too, like, that hopped on this bandwagon on twitter.com, like a lot of other, like, commentators. And that shit is, like, my mind has been blown at how dumb a lot of online Twitter leftists are. Now, again, this is, like, we could talk about online Twitter leftists. And I often don't talk about, like, Twitter drama because it's just, like, stupid and it ultimately doesn't matter. But this one, I think, is just, like, to me, as someone that loves drugs and loves protesting and loves organizing, I can tell that everyone who's commenting on this discourse that is, like, anti-drugs or says drugs should be far away from protests or whatever, I can tell that they've probably never organized a thing in their life. Like I don't know, man. I don't know. So, but maybe I'm wrong. It's possible. But I want to say, I've been going to protests for multiple years. Right, I'm 25, I'm not that old, right? So, I've been going to protests for probably around 4-5 years now. I'm going to be 26 in a fucking week. Jesus. But anyway. Like, I remember, like, one of the first protests I ever went to, right? I knew where, I saw this protest online, right? And so I was in DC at the time, and I'm walking around looking for where this protest is. And, the way I found where the protest was I was following the weed smell. That was, like, the first protest I ever went to. I was following the weed smell, and that's how I found the protesters. Because they had moved, like, I was there late or whatever. So they had moved from the starting position, and I was trying to catch up with them. And so I literally was just hearing the chants and following the weed smell, and I caught up with the protest. So I just want to say, that's my introduction to protesting. Now, this is before I even smoked weed. This is before I even knew anything about drugs, right? So the idea that people are going to say no drugs are allowed to protest, that to me is hilarious, right? And you might be saying, oh, weed doesn't count. No, I shit you not. There are a lot of these motherfuckers that say you shouldn't even be allowed to go to a protest while drinking coffee. Like, I mean, like, what the fuck? Right, like, oh, because it might make you a little too hyper and you might put people... Like, man, there are some real stupid motherfuckers on these, like, left-wing Twitter spaces. And, like, this is, like, infected almost every online Twitter space. And I also don't like commenting on this kind of stuff because I think it's ultimately really silly. And it's like, it's a feedback loop. Because when you comment on this stuff, then people are going to comment on that. Then you're going to get stuck in these drama wars. And it makes everyone worse. No one learns anything. And typically I like to stay away from this stuff. But I like to talk about drugs on my show all the time. So I'm just going to talk about drugs. So I remember one time last year when the Elizabeth City protests were happening over the police murder of Andrew Brown Jr. I remember I was doing mushrooms. Usually I have my phone on airplane mode, right? I don't like, looking at the outside world while I'm doing mushrooms because, it can, cause me anxiety. Like, all I need to read is, like, one stupid comment somewhere, and then boom, like, I'm in the gone zone. But anyway, so I turn airplane mode off, and then I see, like, on Twitter that Elizabeth City is trending, right? Because, like, a couple hours ago, there was a high-profile police murder. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm hallucinating, right? So then, next thing I know, I'm like walking over to the crime scene and like in the middle of like conversations with people and like meeting people that I'd never met before. And like we were organizing like protests. Like, they're like telling me like, okay, people are going to be going to City Hall, right? I'm going to go to City Hall too. I'm going to like see what people are talking about. I met a lot of people and it was, but like, also I learned at these protests, right? Elizabeth City protests last year, which I participated in more than any other movement because it was a local movement to me at the time. I met a lot of people in these protest movements that I had never met before. And I'm going to be honest with you, right? A lot of the ways that after a lot of protest demonstrations, right? Like, it's like midnight, people are going home. A lot of the times people would stick around, go to someone's house, and we'd smoke weed. Or drink a couple beers. And I'm going to be honest with you, right? Smoking weed and drinking a couple beers with people really creates solidarity. Now, again, drugs aren't for everyone. If that's not your thing, that's fine, right? Spaces should be inclusive to everyone. But I'm just letting you know, right? I've never met a lot of people before. We all show up to a protest for the same action, right? We believe in the same cause, right? And we are trying to like learn about each other and make, meet each other and socialize. And it's like, oh, okay, so we're all smoking weed, we're all having good conversations, we're all like getting to know each other more, we're becoming more sociable, right? And then, guess what? It made the organizing more fruitful, right? Because people knew each other better, people were more comfortable with each other, right? And then, through the subsequent couple hundred days, right, of protesting, right, people were more friendly to each other. People were more protective of each other. People knew each other more and cared more about helping each other. And that's a good thing. Right? So again, like this idea that has permeated these weird, like super online echo chamber, like left-wing spaces that like these like respectability politics, like you need to like do everything. Every move you make needs to be perfectly made for optics so that if a conservative like watches like an Andy No out of context clip that you don't look too embarrassing or something. Like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, I mean, this shit is fucking ridiculous. I really like, and like there were like there was like this big poll or something that had like a couple thousand votes on it. And it was like a couple thousand people that identify as left-wingers were like, we need to ban all drugs from political organizing. Now, I just want to say, here's another story. When I was traveling as a volunteer on the Bernie Sanders 2020 campaign, this is in early 2020, right before what happened. I remember I traveled to South Carolina for the South Carolina primary. And so when I traveled there, I'm not going to lie, I brought drugs across state lines, but that's neither here nor there. I brought drugs from an illegal state to another illegal state. I'm just being, hey, it's a couple years ago, statute of limitations, right? Whatever. But anyway, I was like, I put my drugs in a secret stash. I'm not going to tell you how I made them secret, but they were undetectable. And now again, this is all hypothetical, of course. I would never violate federal law. I respect the United States government too much to do that. That said, this is all hypothetical. But I remember like being super hush-hush about my own drugs. I mean, I'm talking about weed here, right? But still. And then I shit you not, right? Like, so, people are like traveling and we all like split an Airbnb, right? In the area. And, there's like 4 or 5 of us or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, I like doing weed. I love to do weed, right? But I don't know if everyone else does, so I'm going to keep it on the hush-hush. I shit you not, as soon as we get in and we all say hi to each other, a motherfucker, like, starts rolling a joint and says, who wants to smoke? And, like, again, I'm not, like, these are people I've never met before, right? All I know is that they are volunteering on the Bernie campaign. They're willing to spend, like, a week of their life or, like, it's like 4 days or something, knocking on doors for 8 hours a day, right? And literally, within, like, 20 seconds, these motherfuckers are like, oh, let's smoke weed. And I'm like, okay, awesome, right? And then we smoke weed. And then, like, that whole entire time, when I was canvassing for Bernie Sanders, now, I could not imagine doing canvassing while sober. Okay? Like, if you've ever done door knocking for a political campaign, and you're on the left, and you're saying you've done that while sober, you deserve a special achievement award, because I remember knocking on doors and having to deal with the dumbest motherfuckers. Like, I remember there was, like, a Pete Buttigieg supporter, right? It was like, I would never vote for Bernie because I have kids. Don't you understand? I have kids. Why would I ever vote for Bernie? Like, this bitch is yelling at me because I just knocked on the door and she saw I had, like, a clipboard with, like, a Bernie thing on it, right? Like, if I wasn't high out of my asshole, I would have, I don't know how I would have reacted. I would have, like, either started laughing at her. I don't know. Like, that's just the most ridiculous shit in the world. But, like, again, I just want to say, like, political canvassing is hard work because it reminds you just how stupid everyday Americans are, right? Now, you meet a lot of great people when you're canvassing, right? But it's a gamble. It's a crapshoot. It's like rolling the dice. Every door you knock on, you might get met with a psychopath. Like, I had some psychopath who threatened to, like, sick her dog on me because I had a Bernie Sanders clipboard. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying, for the anxiety of having to deal with that, I would never wish political organizing and canvassing on people and I would never say that, hey, if you do weed, you're banned or whatever. Because that, like, man, that is some real rough work. That is a violation of, like, the 8th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution that bans cruel and unusual punishment to force people to do canvassing work while stone cold sober. But then also, like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like the coronavirus pandemic has made people, like, shut-ins that are, like, so, like, out of touch from most people. Because most people drink or do some form of a drug of some kind. Now, there are people that are, like, stone cold sober. Now, don't ask them about sugar or coffee. That's also a drug, but that's a whole different conversation, right? So, that, like, and that's cool, and that's for them, and they should also be allowed in space. That's the thing about inclusivity. Inclusivity is about making spaces as open and welcoming to as many people as possible, right? But there's this, like, puritanical, like, anti-fun douchebag style of, like, left-wing LARP stands for live action roleplay. It's like people that, like, pretend to be ninjas, but, like, outside or whatever, right? Like, they, like, get a ninja costume, like, like the people that wear the Naruto headbands and do, like, the shadow clone jutsus, like, that's what LARPing is, live action roleplay, right? So these are people that LARP as political organizers and activists. That is to say, they are not actually political organizers and activists, but they might go outside and pretend like they're cooler than they are, right? But, like, they're out of touch. They've never really met a normal person. Like, most people will do some kind of a substance. Most people have done some kind of a substance, even if they don't currently. Right? So it's like, if anyone in my audience now, I am a pro-drug stream. I'm probably more pro-drug than any other streamer out there, to be honest with you. I just want to pat myself on the back for that one. But, like, if anyone in my audience has this, like, bizarre, puritanical, like, Richard Nixon style of politics, please shut the fuck up. Like, nobody cares about what you have to say. Right? Like, the idea, right, that, like, using drugs automatically makes you, like, some impaired, like, I'm tripping. Right? Like, that's not true. Like, someone, like consuming a brownie, a pot brownie, before they go out to a protest is not putting anyone in fucking danger. Now, in the same way that if someone does too much or drinks too much, maybe they shouldn't be at a demonstration. Maybe, right? There's a line for everything. But also, I've been to a lot of protests that have had a lot of people that were stone cold sober act like raging douchebags. So I would say maybe, if you're going to a demonstration or a protest, don't be a fucking douchebag. Don't be a fucking son of a bitch. It doesn't matter if you're on drugs or off of drugs. Right? If you're a son of a bitch, you're a son of a bitch. It has nothing to do with what you drank this morning, or like fucking like what you're like, what, like, I'm just like, it's so stupid. The only legit reason not to do drugs is if you're exposing others to illegal activity. That's different. That involves, like, bringing drugs with you, right? And then also being around people that are on parole or something. If you ate a pot brownie 3 hours ago, you're not putting anyone at risk. Like, again, and I just want to be very honest, like, I think a lot of the people that are hopping on this garbage discourse have never done drugs, or have never done any protesting or political organizing. Almost every protest I've ever been to has smelled like weed, right? Small town protests in like Elizabeth City, North Carolina. A lot of the time, people would smell like weed, and just the atmosphere would smell like weed. Just a lot. Washington, D.C., I've been to a lot of protests in Washington, D.C. I'm willing to say 100% of them smelled like weed. Right? Like, I feel like anyone who's arguing about this stuff literally has never been outside in any of these contexts. Right? And so I just wanted to comment on that because I saw some really stupid, dumb fuck garbage. And so, like, I saw that when Vaush commented on this, it blew up, and I got involved, and I had a bunch of people, like, sending me a bunch of cringe. And man, oh man, Richard Nixon lefties are like a thing that really we need to talk about, because these are some real stupid ass fucking assholes, man. These are some fucking losers. Like, I remember, like, Bernie rallies. Like, I remember going to Bernie rallies. I remember going to Bernie rallies in South Carolina, right, where I'd never been to South Carolina before, right? And I remember looking, where's the Bernie rally? How did we get there? How did we know where to go? We followed the fucking weed smell. Bernie Sanders was walking on stage in an illegal state where half the people in the crowd were smoking weed. Like, just openly, and now maybe you can say it's probably a bad idea to do it openly in an illegal state. Like, sure, maybe. But my point is, if you're going to alienate people that use drugs or that have used drugs, what you're going to do is you're going to alienate a large portion of people that would otherwise be allies with you. It's literally the textbook definition of, like, anti-solidarity. Like, oh, if you're this kind of person, we don't want you in our group. What? So anyway, I just wanted to comment on that. I know most people don't know what I'm talking about in my show chat, but if you've seen any of this fucking garbage on twitter.com, you know, God help you, don't get involved. It's only going to lower your IQ. It's going to make you upset. It's just the dumbest shit in the world, and I wanted to comment on that a little bit. Now, if someone wants to show me like a clip of Vaush doing a protest, I'd love to see it. Because honestly, I'm not sure. I'm willing to bet that he's never done any serious political organizing outside of Twitch.com or whatever it is, Twitch.tv. Like, wow, I really cannot imagine having such a brain dead take. It really is the dumbest shit in the world. But anyway, LARPers, man. Fucking LARPers. Like, I would rather these people put on their Naruto headbands and do some shadow clone jutsus. That is that is less annoying than going to a protest and being like, is someone here smoking drugs? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. And then the idea that, like, you know, it's just all organizing. Like, you can't get a beer with your fucking coworkers after work and talk about unionizing because beer makes you, like, oh, you're gonna get all goofy. God, these motherfuckers are so stupid. I'm a Richard Nixon leftist, folks. Drugs are bad. Anyway, no movie reviews today because I'm already doing a long show. I'll do some tomorrow. But goddamn, I just want to talk about some really dumbass motherfuckers that I'm going to be honest. I'm triggered. I'm going to be honest. I got triggered. And there you go. So anyway, hopefully y'all